Hello there, welcome to Target Radio Podcasts. Yes, we have a podcast for your ears. Every week here on the show, on our live shows that is, we try and get an interesting persons, artists, band members, music, poets, film playwrights. We even get, we'll try and get everyone. We'll try and get everyone that's interested in our genre of music that we portray here on Target Radio. So what we do is sit them down, we have a telephone interview, sometimes a live interview, and we discuss all things in their profession. So stay tuned here. This one is an absolute blast. You're going to love this, and I'll be back at the end to obviously, tell you what's coming up in the very near future. So I am the Podfather. I will now tell you that this is Target Radio Podcasts. Don't forget to check us out on iTunes, and if you think we deserve it, don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating. That would be rather nice. Thank you very much indeed. So over to me, Cookie, and obviously to Andy Top Walker as well. And sit tight, and enjoy. This is Target Radio. 5
Sunday.
4 Sunday.
3
Sunday night.
2
in his Sunday best.
1
Sunday.
Go. You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
Dear God in heaven, please let this show go okay, with no major boobs or goofs, or is it goofs? Please don't let me tread all over the intros of records, or say a naughty word.
So let's have fun.
Hello, and welcome to the show. Hello, welcome to the show.
Lock it on to the best station on the net.
First we take a groovy record, then we add a super sound DJ.
Oh, Sean Kirby. The big DJ.
When do I get my badge?
And a very good evening. Welcome. Now, what day is it? It's Sunday. Yes, I don't think I've ever broadcast ever on a Sunday. Well, here we go. We're here live every single Sunday now for your musical ear. Hope you can all hear me very well. Let me know how I'm sounding. And welcome to Target Radio. We're live for the next, foreseeable future, hopefully. Anyway, so nice to have you on board this evening. We've got some brilliant guests. We've got none other than returning guests, Mr. James Walsh. Yes, Walsh is here. I hope he doesn't mind me calling him that. It's even that, Father Christmas. We got Smiley, yes! Steve Smiley Barnard. And brand new to the show, Mr. Pete Kirby. Now, what he don't know about musical instruments, you might as well write on the back of a postcard and send it elsewhere. My goodness me, 3 great guests for a brand new show here on Target Radio. It's me, it's Cookie. Okay, please tell your friends about Target Radio, www. Or as I like to say, all the W's, targetradio.co.uk. There you'll find an onboard player. We've got plenty of great music for you this evening. We've got something from The Jam. We've got something from Joe Boxers, The Kingsmen. But kickstarting us off, I bet you can't guess what I'm going to play. Go on, have a little guess. No, never. No, I am not playing Celine Dion. I'm sorry. I know, you've all gone there. You've all switched off. I am not playing Celine Dion. I'm sorry. And no Kylie either. I'm sorry. Yeah, she is super lovely, but no Kylie on the station this evening. No, it is The Who, and this is The Punk and The Godfather. Well, hello everyone. How have you been since I've been gone? Oh, I've got so much to tell you. Well, first off, we're no longer in the sunny Surrey area. We've moved. Yes, we've picked up the studio and we took it elsewhere. All the way to Lincolnshire. Oh, it sounds very posh, doesn't it? And because it is. Oh my goodness me. Wow, trials and tribulations, but I've got a brand new studio. And it's rather fitting for Target Radio. It's very nice. Still the collaboration of loads of wires and stuff to trip over, but we're getting there. So on my first show back, what do? Let's complicate things and we've heard not one, no, not even two, but three fine guests. So we're looking forward to our chat in about 15 minutes time or so, to the tasty trio of James, Pete and that Smiley one. Yes, we are talking about James Walsh, Pete Kirby and the Smiley one. That's Steve Smiley Barnard, who was born ready apparently. Yeah. So we moved up to Lincolnshire at the beginning of August. I've been painting, decorating and painting and all the other stuff. And also in the middle, when the wife wasn't looking, building a brand new, fit for purpose, Target Radio studio. She doesn't know I'm in here. Well, let's keep it that way, okay? She thinks of walking the dog. There's so many places that we can walk the dog as well. It's so nice. Yes, okay, it's flat. Bit windy sometimes, but it's very, very nice. I've even got a double glazed window. Come on! Not that I'm looking out of it anytime soon, because it's pitch black out there. Yes, autumn is upon us. And I'm not going to go through this evening without talking a little bit about the coronavirus, and I'm sure that I'll be talking to my three very special guests. Obviously, musicians. They've got to retrain, apparently. Tuh. That's what I say about that. Tuh. Okay, don't forget, we're going to be reviewing the brand new album. If you haven't gone out and got it yet, you must. The album is called You Can't Go Back. How true a word. And we're going to hear the first track on there very shortly, and it's called Music Box. Then we're going to get to the guys, find out a little bit about the song, and obviously the preceding songs after, and find out what it's all about. Looking forward to it. Right. It's targetradio.co.uk. And I'd just like a quick shout out now to all of you out there listening in a radio listening land. Hello. Yes, I'm back. Nice to have your company here on a Sunday evening. And hopefully my CD player now is going to work. If not, we're pretty much, dead in the water. So, first track then is called Music Box, and this is KW, or Kirby and Walsh. Oh, there we go. Hopefully we've got all three members responsible for that fantastic piece of music called Music Box from the album You Can't Go Back. Let's find out in first. Have we got... Oh, hello, we've got a video here as well. What's that all about? Hello, Mr. Video Man. Right, we should have James Walsh there. Have we got him?
Hello, yes, I'm here.
There he is. And do we have Steve Smiley Barnard there on video? There he is.
Hello, mate.
I'm good, my friend. And you're in your studio as well, all frozen. There you go.
I am. There you go.
Now, I've got to say, you're wearing glasses, Steve. What's that all about?
Well, it's a secret thing. It's like Clark Kent. It's a little secret. But it also means I can't actually read what's going on the screen.
And I think we've got now, new to the show actually, Mr. Pete Kirby. Hello, Pete, how are you?
Hi there, Sean. I'm fine. How are you?
You're coming through loud and proud as well. Fantastic there. Fantastic. Right, okay. Now, look, here we go. Videos are everywhere now. Look, hello, Mr. I'll tell you what, you're looking more like Father Christmas every single day. What is going on with that beard, sir?
I know, yeah, it's a bit of a thing, isn't it?
Well, it is a thing all around your chops, actually. It's very nice. Now, believe it or not, just before I went live on air, I had 2 CD players, all fully functioning, all working, hey presto, and then one decided, I'm not going to play for you any more cookies. So, bear with me one titsy little second while I get this CD player now up and running, because I think all 3 of you guys need, and I think you know what's coming, one of these! There we go. A nice big round of applause for our 3 very special guests here tonight on Target Radio. Brilliant stuff. Now, we just played Music Box. Now, I think I went on record a few weeks ago now when I first heard of the track, and I said, wow, all I can tell you now in comparison was orchestral manoeuvres in the dark. It sounds haunting. It's got that melody. It's got that vocal to it. James, I've got to be honest with you. I didn't know that you could sing that great with that sort of passion. Where did that come from?
It was the final song that we wrote for the album.
Okay.
And it wasn't, in fact, originally, when we started writing it, it wasn't going to be a track for the album. We'd thought about the idea of putting out a standalone single.
Yeah.
And as soon as it was written, it was clear that it wasn't going to be a single. It had to go on the album. It was also written during lockdown, so it became quite a difficult piece in some ways because it was written in 3 different places. And, I had the original sort of idea and a couple of chords. Threw that over to Pete, and Pete did a load of work on it, sort of keyboard stuff, and then passed it over to Smiley.
Yep.
And from there, we ended up with that sort of epic that it became. And straight away, both Smiley and I said that's an album closer, and of course we already had the track to close the album.
Shows how much we know, James, doesn't it?
Exactly. So we decided, well, let's make it an album opener.
Well, indeed. I mean, obviously, I love this album for many reasons. One, because there's 13 great tracks on it, and that's my lucky number 13 as well. Yes, I know I'm strange, and I like the odd number, and most importantly, I do like the unlucky 13. But, my goodness me, I mean, you couldn't have got it, any better as an opener, really, because obviously that would have been great as a closer. But it is brilliant. It sucks you right in, right from the beginning. That track just pulls you in. So, when you were, obviously putting these song tracks together, who was really at the helm there? I mean, Pete, did you have a lot to do with the actual numbering of each track?
Yeah, James and I were in communication with each other about that, and we had similar ideas actually. And James is very clear he wanted Music Box at the start, and he talked about. I wasn't so sure. I thought it should be the penultimate song, but he talked me around. In fact, at the end of the last track, You Can't Go Back, we've actually got a little bit of Music Box plays at the end.
Yes.
So the two bookend the whole album. So I think that works really well.
Indeed, absolutely. And I mean, obviously, I've heard the track, I've heard the old album so many times now. In fact, I fell out with my good close friend, Trevor. I've got to give him a little mention, actually. Hey, Trevor, how are you doing? Because I work with him on a daily basis. So I played the album back to back about 4 times. He went, what, again? I went, yes, I've got to play it again. And he went, oh, for goodness sake, can't we put another radio station on one? There is only one radio station, I'll have you know. Unfortunately, we couldn't get it on an FM old stereo thing, so we had to choose something different. But it is a fine album. Now, can I go on record to say, is this like a concept album? Has it got a story linking all of these great songs one after each other?
That's my view, James.
Yeah, I think lyrically, I mean, obviously, the majority of the lyrics are mine. And, really... I didn't set out with the idea of a concept, but that's how it's kind of ended up. I mean, Music Box is a classic point because the song was written at a time, there is a music box.
Yeah.
I did have a grandma, obviously. But at the time that I wrote that, I didn't realise myself necessarily until fairly recently. We just had sort of news about my mum's health deteriorating.
Okay,
And I wanted to write a song about my mum, really, and I didn't feel emotionally in a place where I could do that. And so I wrote this song that, now I listen to it, is very clearly about my mum. But you know, the central character in it, if you like, is my grandma.
Okay.
And a lot of the songs, the same with the novels that I've written, which I know you're familiar with, Sean. A lot, the songs are really lyrically about things, episodes from my life. You know, even if they're fictional episodes, they're still episodes, you know, founded on something from my life. And you know, there were a couple of times when we were in the studio, and you know, Smiley was almost sort of saying to me, "You sure you want to do this?" You know, in terms of some of the sort of lyrical content, but it's just, you know, that's me. That's just the way I am. And
Indeed,
to be able to then, to be able to then get those structured into such amazing songs with these guys was just, you know, an absolute pleasure.
Well, just sticking with Smiley for a minute, because obviously he's the sort of the miracle man that sort of puts it all together, gets it in there into the studio, and then I'm putting him on a pedestal here, and then obviously, you know, works his magic, and then hey presto, at the other end you've got this circular thing called a CD with some fine music on it. So, you know, sort of talk us through it if you wouldn't mind, please, Steve. You know, from the initial idea of creating this fine album, how much work did you put into this, and was it a labour of love, or did it all flow together really nicely?
It was a little bit of everything, actually, Sean. It was never a labour of love. It was an absolute pleasure. I was kind of in the middle of kind of 4 or 5 different albums from 4 or 5 different acts at the time coming into the studio.
Yeah.
And I found more and more that seeing Pete and James on the diary was a real pleasure, because it was a real fun time anyway. But that, you know, don't let them undersell how much they had when they came in the door. They you know, lyrically and musically, they had a big chunk of what they had, and it kind of morphed. It grew. I like to use the analogy that they brought in some sketches, and I just happened to have a nice box of musical coloured paints, and I kind of coloured it in.
Yeah.
But obviously you can't colour something in that isn't already there. Do you know what I mean?
No, indeed.
And to be totally honest with you, it wasn't until kind of 3/4 of the way through, I was kind of concentrating on the music more than anything. And it was only then I suddenly clocked on to just how deep James was going, like lyrically. And he's right. I did say to him a couple of times, "Are you sure you want to be this open?" You know, because the thing is, you know, they're hard-hitting words, but the thing is, if it's something you want to share with the general public, there's no greater way to do it than in a music box. Excuse the pun. So you know, it's an incredibly strong lyrical album.
Yeah.
And it's a very, you know, I think it goes deeper than any other album I've worked on, and I wanted to kind of keep it as bright against the darkness of it. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want it to be laboured in any way. So there's certain songs on there, for instance, like "She's a Liar," for instance. It's quite an upbeat, positive sounding song. It's only when you hear the lyric that you realise what it's actually about. But I think the kind of the yin and the yang of it was important for me to keep it up as much as I could, you know, with the darkness of the lyric.
Of course, yeah. And I mean, obviously, just continue with that and bringing Pete into the conversation now as well. I mean, obviously, you know, with COVID, obviously, it's, you know, it's here, it's there, and it's everywhere at the moment.
It's here.
Yeah, I can see that. Obviously, for those that haven't got the privilege of seeing this live, and obviously just listening to us, you are supporting something around your neck, Mr. Smiley. What is that?
This is a mask, because I got tested positive last week.
Wow.
So I'm in self-isolation with my daughter and my wife. So anytime I go near the kitchen or the lounge, I have to pull this thing up, and it's like being in the Wild West in our house at the moment, I tell you.
Pistols at dawn, eh?
Oh,
but you know, you're keeping a brave face on it. And how are you feeling? You all right?
I'm actually okay. I think that, you know, to be honest, apart from I wouldn't have gone for a test unless I lost all taste and smell.
Yeah.
Out of the blue. I had a couple of days I felt a little bit rough, like everybody does now and again, a little bit flu-like. And it was only when I lost complete smell and taste that I thought, hang on a minute, this is so uncharacteristic for me.
Yeah.
and I had a test, and 24 hours later I got positive. And to be honest, I feel fine. I'm absolutely, I've had so many lovely wishes from people, because I think there's so many levels of COVID. I think, but I think being quite fit and healthy in your day-to-day life does attribute to you dealing with it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely,
As I say, apart from the taste and smell, I feel fine. So,
yeah, indeed. Well, obviously, hopefully, you're going to get better real soon. I think you will, because obviously,
I'm fine.
a lot of people, say, I've been tested positive, and 2 weeks later, boom, they're out and they're okay and everything's fine.
Exactly.
I think, obviously, we're looking at the worst case scenario on this sort of, on this. As a sort of pandemic and things like that. I don't want to get tied down with this, obviously, but it's good for people to know that there are people out there that get it, get over it, a couple of lemon sips, whatever, a hot water bottle, and they get through the other side of it, and carry on. They carry on. So,
positivity, Sean. Positivity.
Absolutely, and a lemon sip doesn't help either. Well, it does help maybe. And Pete, bringing you into maybe not the COVID side of things, because I'm hoping that you're all okay there.
All fine here, yeah.
That's good. No mask. I can't see a mask there anyway. That's great stuff. Okay. When you were bringing in the instrumental side of things, bringing in your instruments, the keyboards, the synthesizers and all of that, how difficult was that, with obviously COVID, keeping sort of 2 meters or 1 meter, or I don't even know what the rules are anymore. They're always changing. But, how did that work for you? Because obviously it's not a standard setup, is it, really, during COVID?
Yeah, it was interesting. So I look back on this album as being an album of two halves in the way we recorded it, because we had the days where we went down with Smiley, which were fantastic. As Smiley said, they were really fun days. We went in with the sketches, and ideas were sparking off Smiley, what we could do with it, where we could take it. Those songs just grew on the day. So that was a brilliant way of working. And then lockdown hit us, and I remember Smiley messaging me saying, "Have you got facilities to record at home?" I said, well, yeah, I have. I'm, not that experienced with it. I'll give it a go. And it gave me a chance to sort of try out ideas. Yeah. Try things out, see what worked, what didn't, before I sent them over to Smiley. And then we sort of put them together, like patchwork style, really. Smiley doing his magic with the mixing. I remember the last time I saw Smiley, there was one song, which is Like I Love You, which I couldn't get into it, playing it at home, and eventually sent something across. And then when we went across to we saw Smiley, he said, "This this sound is it's like guys just jamming together in a back room or in a garage or something." Yeah. And I thought that clicked for me. I thought this is exactly what the sound we want. But the irony was, it was all recorded remotely. So it wasn't guys jamming good songs. But it sounded like on the album.
You wouldn't know that, though. By listening to the album, you wouldn't know that by any means, because, it's amazing now that we are, obviously we're in the midst of this pandemic, but the modern technology that we have at our fingertips with computers and other resources, it's absolutely amazing that you guys have, accomplished this. Some of it, as you say, together, and a lot of it, some of it, remotely as well, which, it's a mind-boggling thing that you can actually do that.
I think the thing that changed it, Sean, was when we had to do vocals from James's, because usually when James comes in, I'll kind of talk him through it, because James will sing the same song 10 times straight, exactly the same every time. So with James, it's kind of a point of just saying, yes, that's it, that's the perfect bit or whatever. And then it got to the point where we were about 3 or 4 songs short of vocals that we were happy with, and he started doing them at home. And that was interesting, not being with him to kind of... It's more about giving James confidence, and just telling him that, yes, that's it, well done, that's it, or whatever, or maybe do this bit again. So that took a little bit of to and fro, but we found our feet,
and where did you get your, obviously, writing your lyrics? I think, I'm going to ask you that question in a minute, James, but... where did you actually sing? In the house then, was it? Whereabouts in the house did you sing?
Yeah, when we realised I'd have to do some of the vocals at home, initially I sort of set up a little home recording in the sitting room.
Okay.
And that didn't really work at all. I sent stuff over to Smiley, and I knew when I was sending it over that it was shocking.
Yeah.
And he very politely told me it was shocking.
I never used the word shocking. I'll tell you that now.
No, he let me use the word shocking.
There we go. I'm sure it started with an S and a H though, yeah, somewhere along the lines there.
and then what I did find eventually was that if I used Noah's bedroom, which has now been rechristened Studio 2, I could actually get a decent quality vocal, reasonable quality. But what we did do, and it was brilliant. As soon as the sort of restrictions were lifted, I went over to Smiley, and I mean Smiley's vocal booth in his studio is, we both sort of call it my happy place. And as soon as I was in the vocal booth, it was a different ball game. And I just think that's the way it is, Sean, for me.
That's it. Smiley's on the move again here now. Where's he going?
Sorry.
He's going to show us now.
I just noticed a bit of dusting needed doing in the studio. Sorry.
Well, you get on with that while we talk lyrics and everything. So going on to lyrics then, James. I mean, are you responsible fully, or was it a collaborative between the three of you guys?
No, there were 2 tracks that sort of Pete brought as sketches to the table that he had lyrics for, and I had a little bit of input on those, a little bit, just tweaked here and there.
Yeah.
And then there were 2 of the tracks that we actually did during the lockdown. So although I had the initial sort of ideas, I mean, one of them was really no more than a riff when I sent it over to Smiley.
Yeah.
And Smiley turned it into a sort of a complete song. And then he actually came up with a very broad sort of idea for a lyric, which I then took and wrote a complete lyric for. And that was on Sun Don't Shine. There wasn't anything for him to begin with. I hadn't offered any lyrics, just the sort of a basic riff, which he liked the sound of, and then turned into a song that actually, to my ear, doesn't sound anything like the riff I'd sent him in the first place. I think he just wrote a song and pretended to play some riff.
And what ones are you responsible for, Pete?
My Way or the Highway.
I love
and
that
the
track.
final track, You Can't Go Back.
Well, I love My Way or the Highway. That really gets you going, and it's one of those, moving songs. You know what I mean? It gets you sort of your blood pumping. It gets you moving. And when I was driving when I first heard it, and I thought, I really love this. It really is a good sort of a song to get your blood pumping, as I said. But it's a bouncy song. I think that's the only word I can use. A bouncy song.
Well, I'm biased, but I do like that song as well. And it was written really about, because we all know people who won't compromise. They're fixed to their ideas. Yeah. They want to do it their way or not at all.
Absolutely.
So it was thinking around those sort of people, and it was really sort of partly tongue in cheek, really. I had a lot of fun writing that, and we took it into the studio, and Smiley had some great ideas about what we could do with the sound and the instrumentation on it. And I think that one, if I remember rightly, Smiley, came together fairly quickly on the day in your studio.
Yeah,
didn't do a lot afterwards, did we?
I think for me, when you brought it in, I don't think My Way or the Highway was actually the chorus hook, but I heard it. I love the saying. It was such a brilliant kind of quote, that people use probably without thinking about it. And I think I just said, well, that's the chorus, and then I think we rewrote it around that saying.
Right.
That's we did that with quite a few of the tunes, really. I just kind of, it was like they brought in these musical puzzles. Me being a puzzle expert at the moment, because I've done millions of them the last few days. But yeah, sometimes the songs are there, but they're not necessarily in the right order or the right structure, and there's certain things that people haven't necessarily put at the front of the track, if you know what I mean. The hook or the chorus. So a few of the things were quite buried, weren't they, gents? A couple of mysterious middle eights that I said, well, that's the chorus, surely. And you kind of sheepishly looked at each other and went, well, I thought it was a middle eight. And then that became the chorus. And then we just rejigged it. It's as I say, it's just another, it's like coming at it from different angles. But if you trust each other and you know that you're all there for the right reasons.
Yeah, of course.
And for the right ending, someone else may see it in a slightly different way. And we're lucky because we didn't compete in any way. And we all we all kind of, wanted each other to bring something else to the party, and that was what made it so interesting.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, obviously, it's evident on each track. I mean, it does draw you in. I mean, it's got a good line, it's got a good story, it's got a good sound. And I was really drawn in, really, from the first track, Music Box. And as I said before, it sounds so much like OMD, and obviously a lover of the sort of like late 70s, early 80s music, as well as obviously all the other stuff that I listened to. It really drew me in so quickly, and I love that. And I've got to say now, James, where did that voice really come from? Because was that in Noah's bedroom?
I can't remember actually, James. Didn't you redo it?
No, I think we redid it at Smiley's studio. I did send a vocal for it. There was a vocal recorded in Noah's bedroom.
Yeah.
But I think we did re-record it in the studio.
Fantastic. James, sorry to stop you there. I think there's about 3 or 4 versions of that, and I think there was a point of view because we suddenly realised what a pivotal track it was for the record.
Yeah.
And I think there was a point where you weren't totally happy, and I remember, and the thing that gave it away, you said to me, "I can live with it," and I said, "Well, do you love it?" And you said,
I remember
"No."
that.
And I said, "Well, then you need to love it." And so, when you can come back in, until you tell me you love it, I'm not going to let it go.
Hey.
And that's what you did. So that was the key.
That's right.
My memory of Music Box is because James played it to me, sort of rough demo in a car ages back, and I said, "Can you send it across to me during lockdown?" I said, "Send it across to me. I'll see what I can do." So I just played around with it, built up layers of tracks, sort of that OMD sound that you're talking about, Sean.
Yeah.
James bunged it over to James. "I love this." He put a vocal on it, sent it across to Smiley, and he said, "Yeah, that's fantastic. Can you drop the key?"
Oh, yeah.
We had to re-record the whole
Sorry
thing.
about
that. No.
It was absolutely the right call, because as soon as we got the right key for it, your voice just clicked in. And the emotion. That's the thing about these songs. James is a storyteller.
Yes.
I remember Smiley, you saying, James is telling stories. All we're doing is doing all the stuff that's, is accompaniment to that, really. And I think that's where the emotion comes from in the song, in James's vocal.
Oh, fantastic. Well, before we dive really headfirst into this album, then, obviously I'm going to play some snippets all the way through of each track, and then we'll go back to you guys, and, you can tell us how it was created, what the sort of, the song's loosely about. Obviously, you don't want to give too much away. Leave it to the imagination, obviously, for the ear of the beholder, I should say. But just before we do that, Pete, so what are you working on now?
I'm actually I'm not recording at the moment. My sort of interest in music goes back to the 70s. So James was smiling. I love the old prog rock stuff. So I'm actually playing with a prog rock tribute band at the moment. Rehearsing.
Pete the Progger.
There we go.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
Now, I tried to get some prog into the album, and it sneaked a little bit in.
You got a bit in. He
got his own way in the end. Now, obviously,
I'm rehearsing for when COVID passes. Hopefully, we'll be out on the road doing some stuff with the band.
Well, do you know something? Something that I think most musicians, because I don't think anyone can really retrain. That's all I'm going to say there. And quite frankly, why should you? James, what are you doing next? Is it another book, or is it more music?
Yeah, at the moment I'm doing more sort of writing than music again at the moment.
Okay.
I've got a few projects on the go with Gatecrash the Party books.
Excellent.
I'm hoping that Smiley's writing a second book. In between all the other millions of projects he's got going on. I've got another author as well who we published for the first time earlier this year, and he's just completing another book. And we're sort of we've been doing some stuff with Smiley as well for his new album, which is coming out before the end of the year, I hope.
Fingers crossed for that.
That's going to be absolutely fantastic. I've already heard the album.
Yeah.
It's called Smiley's Best of Friends, and in fact you can pre-order it now over at Gatecrash the Party Books. But it's absolutely sensational. It's kind of all the I want to say sort of favourite tracks of Smiley's from albums that he's done before, that he's sort of reworked, reimagined, re-recorded parts of, it's just fantastic.
Brilliant.
Cheers, Joe. James, if it's cash you're after, you're asking the wrong bloke at the moment, mate. I've got to be honest.
But money makes the world go around. Now, obviously, over to yourself, Steve. Now, apart from obviously a bit of dusting, which you're going to need to do later, honestly, that cobweb's terrible over there. You know, I can see it from here. And obviously, you know, your brand new book, it's doing really well, I heard as well. But you're now, I believe, you've got your voice, and you're starting to do an audio production of Clang. Is that right?
Do you know what, Sean? I never realised how hard, but how fulfilling an audio book could be. Because a lot of the people who bought the book said, "Oh, it sounds like you're sitting in the pub and telling me the stories when I read it."
Yeah, definitely.
Have you thought of doing an audio book? And I, to be honest, until recently, I hadn't really thought about it. And then I thought, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
And apart from it taking forever, and anybody who's ever done one will say, it's honestly, man, it's like, because you literally have to, it's like reading the book 10 times, because you have to keep going back and checking your phrasing and your pausing. And so you're really going through the book. So I think I'm 13 chapters in.
Wow.
Which I worked out is about an hour and 45 minutes, and it's taken about 2 weeks. Seriously, man, and it's just to do a chapter. You go and have a lie down afterwards, but it is very funny. I can't stop laughing. I sound like Alan Partridge when I'm doing it. And,
I saw that. I saw that.
But it is quite funny because you do. It is a brilliant way of describing the stories.
Yeah.
Because only you can describe them, so there is certain ways of telling them. You know what I mean? And I've really enjoyed it. It is a bit of a labour of love. I wouldn't say it was. When I get up in the morning, it's a pleasurable thing to look forward to. But as I say, I'm a third of the way through, so
fantastic.
That'll be out for Christmas. Okay.
No
playing the audio book.
No pressure then.
No. That's tomorrow morning sorted.
That's it. Get the dusting done and straight onto a bit more audio. Excellent, lovely. Right, let's get on with this album then, because I'm keen to sort of like go through, maybe sort of 30 seconds each track or something like that, and then once we've had enough, we can put our hands up, and then obviously we can explain each track as it sort of unfold. So we played Music Box, and we sort of exhausted that one now. It was going to be at the end, then it wasn't, then it was, and then it's the first one, then it was the penultimate one, then it went back to the first one, and then we found out it was all in the wrong key, and then you had to re-record it all again. But I've got to tell you now, I love that opener. It brought me into the album really nicely, and you think, right, okay, because sometimes a track on the first track of an album, you think, oh, am I going to like the rest of this album? Well, you persevere, and I do. I really do. Right, so let's play this one then. And this one is called It's All Too Late. Well, it's not, because we're playing it right now. Now, that for me is so powerful. There's so much true life in that song. So we're going to go straight over to you, James. Can I ask, may I ask, should I say, is, what's it about? Obviously, we can hear what it's about as such, but is there another meaning to the song as well?
It's probably fair to say that it's a reasonable assessment of my first marriage, Sean.
Okay, no problem. It is nice because obviously there's so much truth to it as well. If you, obviously from my standpoint, obviously I've been married once myself, so I related to that straight away myself. I was never there. I was always working. I was working hard, putting money back into the home to obviously put food on the table, pay the bills, etc. But I was never at home. I was working, 25 and a half hours a day. So it sort of hit me straight away, and I'm sure there's plenty of people out there in a similar situation where, they're working, and not actually seeing their family at all, and you think sometimes, is it worth it?
Yeah, I think from my point of view, writing that song was very much like writing the first of the novels, in as much as there were certain things that I needed to face up to as well, face and address and sort of get off my chest. Almost like it's a song that's almost like an apology to certain people.
Yeah.
I had a lot of years where I wasn't a particularly nice person, Sean, And
I find it really hard to believe, meeting you obviously, and you are so jolly.
I can believe it.
I think the thing is, you go through stages of your life, and your life takes you to where you. Yeah. Those things brought me to where I am, so I don't have any regrets about anything.
No.
And my dad always said to me, I think I've said to you before, you know, my dad always said to me, if you start regretting stuff, it's the thing, that's what will kill you, you know?
Of course it will. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And so you just have to look back and think, well, okay, that all happened for a reason. And I wasn't a very nice person in those days, you know, and just to address that and get it off my chest was great. And that was actually the very first song that we recorded for the album.
Wow.
And I think that kind of set the tone for things, really.
Indeed. It does sort of take you down that very deep, dark path, doesn't it? And, you know, you think to yourself, oh, you know, and obviously, as I said, it related to me, and obviously it must relate to other people as well. So it's very factual, true to life.
So. I would think so. And again, though, you know, I went in with basically it was all verses, quite honestly. And,
yes.
You know, Smiley immediately sort of identified and wrote a chorus.
Yeah.
And then obviously the song deliberately kind of builds, you know, and there's so many little touches and things. You know, I think that's a track you have to listen to at least half a dozen times just to be able to hear everything that's going on and the things that, you know, the little bits and pieces that Pete and Smiley added. I mean, see, for me, the whole making of this album was kind of like going in, sitting back and watching a song be created by two geniuses and then going in and bombing a vocal, and that's it, you know.
I love that terminology, bombing in a vocal. That should go on a t-shirt, shouldn't it? Eh? Yeah. James Walsh says, bombing a vocal. There we go. We'll put money on that one. I'm sure Steve's already designed it. He's looking at
that's the second album, isn't it?
There we go.
Second album title straight away.
I mean, come on, we had bomb the bass, bomb the vocal. Yeah. Come on,
Kirby Walsh bombing the vocal.
Yeah, it's got to be done. Yeah. Pete, so musically on
Sean,
that one.
For me,
I think go on,
Steve. Song very early on.
Yeah.
Showed me everything from the fact that it was so dark and autobiographical.
Yeah.
But also very much from James's voice point of view, when Pete says about we change keys, it was to find that precise part of his voice, because he's a bit of a crooner, old James, on quiet, you know what I mean? But because he tells such a great story.
Yes, he does.
I think if it was just words just floating in and out, but because it's a story, it's like a whole part of his life in a 3-minute song, and I think what Pete and I tried to do. As this song was kind of, you know, got darker and darker and was motoring down the road, we were adding bits of strings to just add a little bit of brightness in the darkness, if you will.
Sort of lifting the song as such, yeah.
For me, it was very much like kind of Scott Walker, the way, you know, or Leonard Cohen, the way they tell a story. They're singing, but they're actually narrating, and I think that's what I really kind of learned early with James, that Pete and I had to just add these flashes of colour to something that was actually predominantly quite dark. But I thought it was going to be the album opener, so I kind of went with that idea, really. It was only late on that Music Box tripped it up.
And Pete, and over to you, Pete. Obviously, musically, I mean, the instrument sounds on that, you know, even the sound of it is sort of gloomy, it's dark, it takes you on that sort of story that, you know, Steve was saying. You needed the lift here and there to make it a little bit more lighter, I suppose. How difficult was that for you?
Well, I think, as we were saying, actually, it was the first one we did, and we just found, we sort of found our rhythm fairly quickly with it. I mean, it's a gritty song.
Yeah.
And he's, you know, it's James telling a story, which he's brilliant at doing.
Yeah.
I really like the contrast from, although I'd argue for Music Box to be the penultimate song, but I really like that contrast from going out at the end of Musical Box, where you get that little musical tinkle tinkle, slowing down as if it's the clockwork's running out, and then suddenly, bang, you're into this gritty song, and with quite gritty lyrics as well. I think it's a fantastic contrast.
It is a lovely, I mean, I say a lovely song. It's a true to life, and it hits you, you know, it makes you think. And I like a song that actually sort of like you think to yourself after playing it, you think, now, do I hit the pause button just for a second to reflect? Now, that for me is a good song, personally, because it does make you reflect. It does make you think. And some songs, they don't do that, you know.
I think, Sean, that for me, that the music had to reflect the depth of the vocal.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
absolutely,
if you listen to it from the start, it's quite sparse. It's really only a piano and bass and drums and James's vocal. But then as it gets on, it's like he's telling the story and the story's unfolding and the musicality is unfolding as well. And when
It
you
builds,
get to the end, the kitchen sinks in it. We couldn't fit anything else on it. We'd exhausted every. There weren't any more instruments in the studio to throw on it. Yeah.
Again, on with instruments then, because I know obviously, Steve, you play a multitude of instruments yourself, but Pete, you play also quite a vast range of instruments. What instruments can't you play?
Oh goodness, I'm mainly a keyboard player, self-taught keyboard player.
Okay.
So I took various keyboards along to the studio at various times and coaxed various sounds out of them. And as I say, when I was at home, I was able to fiddle around. In fact, I had a keyboard that I was thinking of getting rid of, that I did a lot of the lockdown recording with as well. And I thought, why did I ever think of getting rid of this keyboard?
Exactly.
It's fantastic.
You should
how
just leave
dare
it
you?
in the studio, Pete. Leave it here.
Yeah. A few times, I took a keyboard along and Smiley was saying, do you want to leave that with me for a while?
Where do you think you got all these other instruments from? But anyway, moving forward then. Quite appropriately, She's a Liar. Obviously, Pete, you mentioned that earlier. So tell us a little bit of the song, please.
Well, this is James's lyric. In fact, this is one I think that James and Smiley were sort of bouncing between them, and I came into it a little bit later.
Okay.
And added a bit of the keyboard on. So this is a lockdown song, as I remember.
Yeah.
You know, am I remembering correctly?
Yeah.
So it came across to me, and I added some bits, and we sent it all to the big jigsaw puzzle maker over in Surrey, who did his magic and produced a great picture out of the whole thing.
There we go, straight in there. She turned out to be a liar, Pete. My goodness me. So obviously, we know the sort of gist of the song that, she's sort of playing around or something like that. So how did the song come about?
Well, I originally wrote the lyrics for that. Again, it was about somebody I knew.
Okay.
From years ago, and real life situations. And originally, I'd written that song. I remember the first time I played it to Smiley in the studio, just a small sort of demo that I'd done at home for it.
Yeah.
And straight away, Smiley said to me, "It's a great song, dreadful chorus."
Oh, come on, James. I wouldn't have been that subtle. I would.
Great song, great song. He said it needs a different chorus. So
Yeah.
then when lockdown came along, we still hadn't done anything with it by then.
Right.
And I had this idea of it being almost like a Blondie type feel. In my head, that was where I imagined it going.
Yeah.
And then when I sent it over to Smiley then in lockdown, he just got hold of it and turned it into this. I mean, to me, it's quite Britpoppy and really,
Yes.
really
Yeah.
classy.
I mean, obviously, a lot of albums I've, done these things on Target Radio. A lot of these albums have that sort of roller coaster effect. You've got a couple of highs, then it goes down a little bit, then it goes back up a bit, then down a bit. Now, this one obviously brings you from number 2 into number 3 on a sort of like a high part of a roller coaster. It's very high and it's very light in listening to. So it sort of takes you from that, what's the word I'm looking for here? That sort of darkness into something a little bit lighter.
But Sean, that was the point, because if you listen to the lyrics, they're really dark. So the idea was we had to disguise it a little bit, because you couldn't go from the second track of being kind of such a heavy subject matter to something which is actually, if you think about it, She's a Liar, which it's not a subtle lyric. It doesn't hold anything back. It's basically, you are a liar. So the premise of it was to disguise it a little bit, to be a jolly, upbeat, happy backing track with this kind of another. Otherwise, I would have killed myself by the full shot. So I think that was the idea, that we kind of started disguising a few things, and brought a bit of colour to it musically. Because again, it was such a dark. The whole album's quite dark lyrically, but the idea
absolutely,
was to bring some colourful musicianship to it. But
absolutely,
I really like this one. I really like this track.
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
good melody.
It sounds a jolly song musically, and then if you sort of like try and take away the music for a second and obviously just listen to the lyrics, you think, oh my God, what's this about? You know what it's about, but you sort of, the music sort of takes, like you say, it disguises it, it hides it slightly. So, you're sort of like thinking, I can tap my toe to this, but then you think to yourself, should I be tapping my toe to this? So again, it's one of those songs that make you think about what you're actually listening to. And that is the whole point of music, though.
Well, it comes from the Smiths, really, if you think about it.
Oh,
the Smiths did it brilliantly, better than any other band, like with these dark kind of, dark lyrics, really clever lyrics, but the music was kind of, Johnny Marr's guitar and stuff, uplifting, and it was the perfect disguise for kind of getting these lyrics under the wire. And it was a little bit like this when the song started unfolding and there was a theme running through it. It was like, well, we can't just have 12 very dark, moody, because as I say, no one would have got past song number 4. But it was like, the idea being that we coloured it in different colours to kind of reel you in a little bit, and then maybe look into it a bit deeper of what James is actually saying. I think it worked really well.
Well, I can be honest with you, this does work very, very well. I didn't crash my lorry once when I was listening to it, and that was on the 3rd time round as well. And it does. It just sucks you in. And I keep saying it because it really, really does. I've not heard an album this year with the intensity, the subject matter, and like you say, the music may bring it up, it may bring it down. You just really don't know where you are with this album at all. Now, I'll go back to Pete again now, because obviously, was it yourself that mentioned My Way or the Highway? Was it yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to play that in a second. You said it's one of your favourites.
Well, I'm biased because I sort of went into the studio. This was my sketch that I took into the studio, so I'm slightly biased.
Oh, why not? You can be biased. It is one of your songs. So we're going to play it, and then I'll come back to you, and you can tell me a little bit more about this. And, of course, I'm cutting these songs very, very short for our listener, in case they've got, one of those old-fashioned tape recorders that are taping it off and stops you guys from earning some money from your very much hard but most appreciated work there. Now, Pete, I like this track for a number of reasons. One, the title. Come on. That is fantastic. And who come up with the title? Was that yours on the blank canvas to start with, or was that sort of interjected later?
Yeah, I think it was coming out of conversation with James, talking about people we knew and saying, with them it's always my way or the highway. And I thought that's a great lyric. We need to put that into a song somewhere. And it became the hook, the chorus. Yeah. And it worked really well. And there's lovely harmonies that Smiley was throwing in there. I remember in the studio, this was one that sort of grew and grew, and Smiley said, we can put a higher harmony in there, we can do this, do that. And it's funny because I always imagined it just as it is on the album, as a sort of driving guitar song.
Definitely,
I play a bit of guitar, but I'm not a guitarist as such. Mm-hmm. So I sort of sat down and played it on piano, which sounded very tame. And I think we kept the piano in actually underneath it. But then Smiley added guitar and the bass, the drums, all the driving stuff to it. Brilliant lyric, vocal from James.
And
we had a bit of Moog, because I had a bit of my proggy stuff in there as well.
Yeah, so, say that. Yeah.
I do like this one.
It has got a slight 70s feel to it as well, I think. So you've achieved your proggy there. It's in there, and it does drive it forward. It drives the album forward as well. But most importantly, it drives that question, my way or the highway, and obviously the storyline's in there. We'll get to that in a second. So, we mentioned obviously Steve with obviously the extra instrumentation there. Was that a joy on that one? Because it sounds to me that you're playing really happy on it.
It was quite easy, this one, actually. It was quite formed once we structured it, and it was. I think the proggy bit, as Pete calls it, actually became the hook.
Yeah.
Because it was the bit that took it away from just a straight, 4/4 thing, and what it didn't want to do was plod. So it was a good feel and it was a good bounce, but it was something it needed an extra dimension.
Yeah.
And then we kind of let him out of his little prog box for 10 minutes, and he came up with these really great kind of Moog sounds.
Yeah.
And it just made it really interesting. Added a few high harmonies, but again, you see, it's a great narration. The thing with James is he delivers it so clearly.
Yes.
If you stay within that proximity with him, you can hear the story. It's like an audio book, funny enough.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Maybe you need James can help you with your Clang book. You never know.
Oh, man, I don't think we've got long enough. Seriously, you'd have to move in, James. I didn't realise how long it would take.
Yeah. And on to you, James. Did you actually manage to find someone to scratch your back now? That's what is the most important thing we need to know.
Yeah, it was funny actually because recording, because that was the first one of the that we recorded that I hadn't sort of done the original lyric for.
Yeah.
And in a way that was, you know, even though I'm a person who, you know, for many years I've sort of sung covers for a living, so I'm used to singing other people's songs, but to actually try and, you know, sing a song, I'm the first person to sing that song, you know,
Yes,
so
yeah.
it's an original track. And it took me a little while to sort of work my way around the lyrics to sort of fully understand the story the way Pete had written it, you know, because he didn't write it the way that I would have, you know, obviously. And so, you know, and that was interesting too. That was really great, and I loved recording that song. I really did. It was.
You can hear it. You can actually hear it in the music, and obviously the you know, the way it's sung as well. It sounds like you guys were just having a really good time in recording it, and obviously, you know, you can hear that it comes through. You know, and you do feel quite, you know, loose with it. You feel quite alive with it. Most importantly, it gives you, even though how can I say, the message that's coming through is a little bit down, you know, and dark again. You left feeling a little bit jolly from it, I think. You know, it's a very jolly sing along, and that hook does catch you straight away. You start humming it straight away after you heard it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think.
Oh yeah, it's a real earworm. And actually, I must say that I think that's one that probably you did in one take, James. And a lot of these were one take vocals. And James said, "Do I need to go back and do that?" And we were going, "No, that was fine. He nailed it in one take."
Well, you do know his nickname is One Take Walsh.
There's plenty more than that, Sean.
Hey, there we go. Well, that's the only ones we can use for radio, unfortunately. Right, so let's go on to the next one now, and it's called Any More. Now, who's going to put their hand up for the opener of this then? What's it about, please?
It's
James Walsh.
Yeah. I think it's about. It does exactly what it says on the tin. You know, so many songs are written about sort of breakups and so on, and they're always written from the perspective of the person who's been wronged. I think, you know, it's like the person, oh no, you know, and all this. Yeah. And I just really wanted to write lyrics that was from the point of view of the person who's sort of doing the dumping, as it were.
Okay.
You know, and I wanted it to be almost. I set out to write something that was quite nasty.
Oh, I didn't know you had it in you. Right,
you didn't do a very good job there, did you, James? You haven't got a nasty bone in your body.
I'm trying to do best, though.
Do you know, I don't think he has. And have a listen to this, guys, because it proves it. Do you know, I'm feeling quite upset listening to this. But it's going down again now. The album actually, when I say going down, on this roller coaster ride, it's starting to come back down again now, and obviously sinking down to that sort of a somber level. And like you say, I mean, it's a unique perspective of listening to this song from the dumper rather than the dumpy. The dumpy is always, oh, what did I do wrong? But you're actually hearing it from the other side of the coin as such, and that makes it quite unique, because you never get really to hear both sides of the story, or indeed the this side of the story. So what made you do that, James?
It was again, I think part of it was looking back on things that I'd done years ago.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a different person, and so I wanted to write that, as I say, it was quite a nasty lyric, I thought. And then what really made the track for me, I mean, to be honest, that's possibly my favourite track on the album.
It is a good track, yeah.
And every time I listen to it, all I can hear anyway is the acoustic guitar that Smiley plays to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely rocks my world, that acoustic guitar.
Indeed. I think you believed in it, didn't you, Steve, with this song? Because, like James said, the guitar playing in this is so on point.
What worried me when he first brought it to me, or they first brought it to me, was how direct it was lyrically.
Yeah.
He didn't sugarcoat it at all. It was literally black and white.
Yeah.
I don't love you anymore. I'm out of here. See you later. And this is the reason.
That's it. Ta-da! I'm gone. Yeah.
And so to be honest, you know, it was, but it kind of again. You see, the music fitting the lyrics was quite an interesting, you know, challenge. But I think James is right. I think it's one of the better songs because it does. If you're gonna write it, to me, it's very much like, you know, when people come out of rehab, and their mission is to go and put right what they've done wrong in the past.
Yeah.
So they end up going around to visit everybody or ring everybody, but they don't sugarcoat anything. I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but I've had people do it to me where they come around and go, "Yeah, I'm sorry."
Yeah.
And I go, "All right." And then you go, "What are you sorry for?" And they go, "Well, I'm sorry I burnt your house down." And it is that. It's black and white. It is, I'm sorry, right?
Yeah.
I've done my time.
Yeah.
And so I'm sorry. And then the idea is, it's up to you whether you forgive me, whether you do or not. It's your choice. But I'm doing my part of this. And I think what James was doing was he was just telling his side of the story. There was no sugarcoating. There was no but the reason was it's like, well, this is it. I'm just telling you now. It's over.
Yeah,
see ya.
That's it. I'm off. Yeah, I'm off. You know, there's no, like you say, there's no sugarcoating it, and certainly, you know, it's on point. It just gets to the point straight away. It's not like, well, I've had a really good think about this, and you know, you just deliver that point there and then, James, which is absolutely fantastic. And Pete, I mean, obviously, bringing you into this one as well. What instruments did you play on this? Was this keyboard, piano, or?
Yeah, I think this is mainly piano, as I recall it. I remember trying to get that piano sound and leaving space for James's vocal in there.
Yeah.
You know, again, another great vocal. And I had the same response, actually, as Smiley was saying. When James first sent it across to me, I said, what is this song about? It's you know, it's dark. And he said, well, that's the whole point. It's from that point of view. And I went away and thought about it.
Yeah.
And I thought, actually, I don't like the person who's telling this story. That means I'm emotionally engaged with it. I'm reacting to it. And that's what music should be about. You know, you have an emotional reaction to it. You know, you love it, but you know, you're drawn in by it because you're thinking, who is this character who's saying these nasty things?
Yeah.
So I think it's brilliant, sort of to turn it on its head and tell it that way around.
Absolutely.
So, I think we found a good arrangement with this one.
Yeah. I think as well, what happened was, if I remember rightly, Sean, was that we kind of structured it in a bit of a triangle with me on a guitar, Pete on a piano and James singing, and we recorded it like that, and it sounded great just that stripped. And then the discussion was, well, do we leave it like this, just acoustic, and then, or do we add, you know, we start piling up the drums and the bass and stuff like that. And I think that's why it sounds so together, because you could take everything out and it would. To me, it's a piano ballad. You know, it was based around the piano, and then everything else was just added on the top. But if you took everything out and just left the piano and the voice, it would be as good, I think.
I think so too, and it's something that you might think of doing later. You know, once we're allowed back out in the big wide world, is it something you might take out on the road and maybe do something semi-acoustic, maybe? Is that something you guys might think about doing?
Yeah.
I would love to do that. Yeah.
I think, you know, I'm not expecting the dance floor full of bods dancing to it, but I'm expecting a lot of people sitting there and thinking, wow, and reflecting on it. I think that could really work. You know, just an idea, you know, throwing them out there. Obviously, we're all creative souls at heart. And I think that could really, really turn a few heads, especially if they've not bought the album or heard the song before.
For all you lovers out there.
Yeah.
You can all come as couples and leave as singles. Yeah.
Okay, now, are we expecting on this album now with Sun Don't Shine? I mean, obviously, the title of the next song we're going to play, Sun Don't Shine. I mean, obviously, we had the Walker Brothers, The Sun Don't Shine Anymore, which is obviously a very terminal thing. Sun Don't Shine, why? What's the song about, guys?
I think this is quite a difficult song actually, because lyrically it's probably the most detached from the rest of the album. In as much as I said at the start, I sent over to Smiley 2 different tracks that was literally just a couple of riffs that I had sort of thought of maybe we could do something with, and I said to Smiley, look, I've got these 2 riffs here, I've done nothing with them, you know, do you want to have a listen?
Yeah.
And Smiley came back to me and said, yeah, riff 2, I can do something with that. And within a couple of hours, he sent me over this track, and he recorded a vocal on it that was just a bitty sort of vocal, you know, like Sun Won't Shine was the sort of main thing I remember about the lyric he had in it.
Yeah.
And what I decided to do was not sort of just then write my own lyric for it. I thought I'll start at this starting point that Smiley's given me, and write a lyric kind of around that.
Okay.
And there is still, I think, without any doubt, a fair amount of darkness in the lyric. But that's sort of how it came about, and this is pretty much, all entirely recorded during lockdown, I think, and then Smiley, we threw it over to Pete, and he added keyboard parts and stuff.
Indeed. Now, for me, that keyboard just lifts it up a little bit, doesn't it, Pete? I think, personally, for that song. Yeah. It just...
I think as James said, this is sent over to me. James and Smiley had sort of knocked it around, got into shape. I sent it across to me to add some big songs. And I wanted to... I'm trying to think how to describe it. A sort of whooshy sound, almost like the sea coming in, and just sort of swept along with it. So for me, that keyboard sound, that's one of the ones that's a good example of me trying things out at home and sort of tweaking things and playing around with it until I got a sound that I really liked and sort of tried out on it as well. So I think it's, again, listening to it just as you were playing it then, I think it's got a nice beat mix. Again, it could be quite downbeat and miserable, but it's got a little bit of life to it as well.
It has,
so I think that works.
I think with the music side of things, of all these tracks, obviously if it was just acoustic all the way through, which is not a problem for me personally, but I think with the subject matter, obviously it's very dark, it's very moody. I think the music does lift it up, and you get that nice wave throughout each song, and it does sound fantastic. And obviously the subject matter of this one, obviously Sun Don't Shine, it's very much a doom and gloom, again, excuse the pun there and the terminology, but it's very much a doom and gloom song. The storyline is, it's all finished, it's all dark, and for me the music just brings it up just that notch, so you don't feel like you want to jump out of a moving car, or in my case a lorry.
Well, do you know, I had the idea, Sean, of when we got this up and running, of it being a duet between James and James, right? And bear with me, because I couldn't work out whether I liked him singing it low, and kind of as the Scott Walker character, or I liked him singing it at the upper range, and I couldn't decide what I liked best, so I actually got him to do both. And then in the end, I just put him side by side, so it's actually him singing twice.
Now, I noticed that as well, because I was actually going to say who you sing him with, because it's really quite... you can't tell that it's actually the same voice.
Yeah, and it took a while to get the balance right, and a couple of times I sent it back to him and said, I flipped it, what do you think? And he said, I prefer it this way, I prefer it that way.
Yeah.
Then we were going to try someone else singing it with him. And then I said to him, well, look, if you do it, and then we'll just blend the two so they become one, as it were.
Yeah,
and
it works.
I think the idea was that the lower one had to be slightly louder than the higher one. Yeah. If I'm right, am I right? It's one way, isn't it?
Yeah, I think actually, what I think when I listen to it is that I think that you changed it slightly halfway through.
I did.
I think what you've got is on the first part of the song, the lower vocal is less prominent, and in the second part of the song, the lower vocal becomes the more prominent.
Possibly. I'm not
or did you just mess it up?
Yeah. or I just made a massive mistake.
Or either way, though, it sounds incredible.
James just exposed me on radio. I know it was quite a late decision.
Yeah,
the double vocal.
Yes,
and it was quite a late. It only came to life when we kind of sent it to Pete, and Pete put that lovely keyboard sound at the end.
Fantastic, yeah, absolutely.
It's beautiful.
Fantastic.
It's my favourite bit of music on the album. That keyboard riff is stunning, and it was that dictated. For me, it was a bit 10cc-ish. You know how they used to do the layered vocal thing.
Yes.
And then I thought about whether we would put some more vocals in it. But then I like the idea of a low end and a high end, and then just blending them kind of morphing them together. So that's what we did. I like this track. I mean, this is really quite clever.
I think it is very, very unique as well, because we don't get to hear a lot of this sort of voice. I'm not going to use the word sampling, because you're not really sampling. You're basically just, you're singing it twice in slightly different, pitches, if you like. Like you say, the high and the low. Completely
different. Is completely different ranges.
Yeah.
But he sang it identically.
Absolutely.
And that was the point. So to match the two, what it does, it stretches your ear, because certain elements come out. So at one point you think he's singing it low, and then the next point you literally naturally think he's singing it high.
Yes.
And there's no join. No
indeed.
line in the horizon.
It does really mess with your mind. Yeah, it really does mess with your mind. Yeah. And again, as Pete picked up on a couple of the other songs, it draws you in. It makes you think. And that, for me, makes a good song overall. I mean, obviously, when you first heard it back, James, what was your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean...
You weren't sure, were you, at first?
No, for a long time, I wasn't sure, and it wasn't until we got pretty much to the final mix that I really, suddenly it clicked with me, and I really liked it. For a long time, I was really dubious about it.
Yeah. Is it because, obviously, of the two different sounding James Walshes, I suppose?
Well, no, it was because I wasn't particularly comfortable with either the lower register singing or the higher register. And it was only when I got the mix through, even when Smiley sent me the first mix through, which was only a rough mix of the two vocals together, to me it was still, obviously at that stage it still wasn't quite right, because it was still a work in progress.
Of course,
so although I could hear the two vocals together, they weren't balanced fully. And it was only when I got that final version that I thought, oh yeah, he's nailed it. But I knew he would.
Oh, yeah. Perfectionist, isn't he, our Smiley?
I wouldn't call it that. Trial and error, Sean. Trial and error.
And, obviously, a lot of these, shall we say, happy mistakes, it really does work, though. That really does, like I say, it really does, again, I keep using this word, but this album does draw you in, ladies and gentlemen. And if you haven't got a copy of it yet, why not? Because... the subject matter itself is very, very powerful, and it's very real life. But I'm just speaking to the ladies and gentlemen out there, all three of them at the moment. What I would say is, please buy the album, not because obviously the artist needs pennies, in their pockets, and trust me, it is only pennies. I think you really will enjoy this because it is real life, and obviously we're discovering today that on these tracks. Each track is so unique from the other one, but they seem to sort of very much link together in this storyboard that you're having here on this 13-track album. It's absolutely fantastic. We're going to go on with the next track now, and this one is called Stand Up. You can sit down for this, honestly, you can. If you're comfortable, sit where you are, have a listen to this, and then we'll get back to the guys and find out a little bit more about it. Now, I mentioned earlier about one of your songs, if you've done it acoustically, guys, that most people will just probably reflect on it and sit down. But this one, obviously, it does what it says on the tin. Everyone needs to get up and have a little boogie to this because it is such a danceable track. And I don't know if that was your intentions right from the offset, but this really, it makes you want to move yourself. It makes you want to sort of have a little go in the car seat, or, have a go in the office if you're listening to it. Or indeed, down a local pub if they stay open past 10 o'clock. My view of this is very, very danceable. Was that what you were trying to get, guys?
Yeah, that was definitely deliberate. I mean, I originally had in mind something quite funky for this.
Definitely funky, yeah.
And
go on, James. Tell him where he stole it from. Go on, I dare you.
And then Smiley said he wanted to do something a bit more sort of almost like Prince with it.
Yes.
And it was then I had to confess that I'd stolen the idea from one of Smiley's own albums. He had a track on one of his albums that I really loved, and I did tell him, called "What Would James Do?" An absolutely fantastic track, and that was where I'd originally sort of started from. My original idea for this song came from "What Would James Do?"
Indeed, it has got that funky riff to it, hasn't it? It's got that real get up and go. It's got a lot of musically. It's got a lot going on in there. But the lyrics, just get up, stand up, and be counted. It just works.
The great thing is, I don't think he really realised until he started introducing his own sort of guitar bits and that, and he suddenly thought, hang on, I've done this before.
See you in court, Walsh.
So obviously James has sneaked in there, got one of your songs, and totally took it as his own. And you were halfway through before you realised, Steve. Yeah.
Well, if you're gonna steal a song, you might as well nick it from your producer.
Well, why not?
I took it as a fine tribute. A fine tribute from a fine man. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. And obviously the arrangement of guitars and musical instruments, there's a lot going on there, really. He's gone. Where's he? He's got the amp now, look. So we'll go to Pete for a minute because let's bring Pete in and hopefully Steve will connect back up.
Sorry.
Yeah, there's everything going on in there. There's guitar, we're trying to get a sort of Stevie Wonder, sort of clavichord kind of sound. There's Hammond organ in there. And I must say, most people know Smiley as a great drummer, which obviously he is. But he's a fantastic bass player. I couldn't believe the bass line you could do from this. And if you could isolate that bass track, just listen to that, and your jaw would drop. Absolutely amazing. It's one of my favourites, I must say, this one.
It is a good lively track.
It's a good song for this album because it's very upbeat.
Indeed, you're back on that roller coaster again. We're going right up into the clouds now, and we're really getting funky with it. And let's get on to track number 8, because obviously time is ticking away now. And quite appropriately, this one is called How Differently. Even the wording on each of these songs sort of really flows on this album, James. Was that your intention all the way through?
I think until we put the list together, sort of the running order, I don't think I realised quite the impact of some of the titles and the way it would work.
Yeah.
But when Smiley asked me about it, I said to him what I've really done or what my intent.
Oh, we seem to have lost James there for a minute. He's gone very quiet. We can hear Steve pouring his glass of water there. So if you can hear us, James, we've lost your microphone for a minute. So we'll go to Pete for a second while Steve has a very refreshing glass of a beverage, which is water, I'm afraid. Nothing more. It could be vodka in there, though. We don't know.
COVID water.
COVID water. There we go. So over to you on this one then, Pete, if I may. What did you put into this song and How Differently?
Yeah, it started with a great riff from Smiley, and I think we just sort of listened to it and tried to think what would work on this. And there's a little keyboard line that sort of goes underneath the vocal, which to me sounds quite 80s-ish.
Yes.
And I think the thing about this album is you can hear influences from across the decades, really. You got influences from going back in the 60s with Like I Love You. You got the 70s stuff. You got 80s stuff. Right up to modern day. So it's just trying to find the right vibe, the right arrangement that really supports the lyric and the vocal.
Yeah, indeed. Let's have a little listen to it. Now, for me, obviously, we're going back to a little bit of OMD sort of style of music there, obviously with the synthesizer underneath and the vocals there, very much it's Ian McCluskey, isn't it, the vocalist there for OMD. But the music itself is absolutely powerful again, and it's just bringing the whole song together. Anyone can answer that. Anyone can answer that.
No, I really like this tune. I think this was another one that we had to be a little bit cute with musically, because just to break it up a little bit. And I think there's the synthesizer riffs and stuff underneath it. It's quite. If you take that away, there's not a lot really going on. It's not that clever, but Pete made it extremely clever.
Yes,
because he is basically. So yeah, it's a very cute track. It's one you kind of want to listen to again. I find this one.
Yeah, indeed.
To scratch the surface and see how deep it really goes. But yeah, musically, I think this is one of the better ones.
Right, indeed. Let's just find out. We've got James back now. James, are you there? Okay, we've got nothing from James at all. I don't even want to come off and reconnect again, James, if you like, because I can't hear him at all. No, he's going to reconnect now, and hopefully he'll be back on top in a minute. So, Pete, with the synthesizer sound there, very much, like you say, it's late 70s, early 80s, sort of a synthesized sound there. Was that always your intention?
I don't think it was, actually. I think it's when we got the beat down in the studio, the basic backing down there, it just seemed to naturally come from the track just seemed to call for it.
Yeah.
I think I just tried it out, and we thought, yeah, we'll go with that. Recorded it, and it seemed to work.
Indeed,
I think that's it. It's just trying to find the right sound for the right part of the song, and I think we've got it right most times on this album.
I think so too. I mean, obviously on this track itself, Steve was saying it's a simple song. And, I'm not saying for a minute, obviously, producing it and making it was simple, but it comes across very nice. It comes across very easy. And like you say, it's one of those tracks you really just want to hear again, and possibly again, and again, and again. And the only way you're going to do that, ladies and gentlemen, is obviously you've got to go out and buy it. So I'm not playing it anymore. I'm sorry, not tonight, anyway. James, can we hear you now? No.
Can you hear me?
Can we hear you?
I can hear you.
There we go. There he is. We can hear you now. Your mouth was going up and down, but not much was coming out.
Oh, right. Okay. I'm back.
I'm sure Steve was about to say something then, but he took a swig of water and
I was.
I knew. Yeah, we all know what he's like. We know what he's like. So we're going to quickly move on then to track number 9 then, and Love Is Easy. Now, who said Love Was Easy? Whose idea was that? Because I want to shake him by the hand, but most importantly, I want to know what the secret is of love, because it's far from easy.
I was going to say, I don't agree with that. I'll punch you in the face rather than shake your hand.
I think that I originally wrote the lyric to this. It was, I think it was probably John Lennon inspired.
Fantastic.
And I had this idea of a song that was going to be kind of like a cross between sort of John Lennon and Johnny Cash.
Oh, right.
And in the end, we after Smiley had got his hands on it and turned it into an absolute epic, I think what we've ended up with is something that's more like Johnny Cash meets U2.
I'm just going to let this one play just in the background there, James, because this is such a lovely, lovely song. You've got a little mixture of some country music in there. Obviously, with the acoustic guitar, just brings it up a little bit. And then obviously we can hear Pete's keyboards in there as well, which again just adds to the enjoyment of this song. How enjoyable was this, writing and obviously then performing this?
I think what the thing that really made it for me was once again, it was one of those that I had no real clue about a chorus for it.
Yeah.
And Smiley kind of helped us to create a really good chorus for it.
Yeah.
And then when we introduced that chorus, it then took the song in a slightly different direction.
Yeah.
And we ended up with a really big sound that sort of, as I say, it goes a bit kind of almost bordering on U2 halfway through. We get this drum crashing in sort of introduction.
It builds nicely, doesn't it? Yeah, it does build nicely.
And some of the guitar parts that Smiley plays in this are incredible. And then we've got, he added like French horn in there.
Yeah.
There's some timpani at the end, which is just glorious. Absolutely love that.
Yeah, absolutely,
some seriously good backing vocals. The whole thing just builds and builds to this sort of crescendo, and it's wonderful.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll just listen to it in the background here. And you can hear it now. It's just starting to build in there nicely now. I'll just forward it a little bit there, ladies and gentlemen. But it's just starting to sprinkle a bit of water on it. It's starting to come alive now. And it's blossoming. You can hear it. So when you were doing this, Steve, did you always have this sort of like idea of building on this song as it sort of matured?
Yeah. It was one of those that started with nothing, and then it ended with everything.
Everything.
What James says is right. Again, it's such a great lyric and it's such a great melody. You could literally have just an acoustic guitar, running from start to the end. My idea was that if you work it out, it's something like every 8 bars, something new comes in from the start.
Yeah.
And to the end, it's literally there's nothing left to put in. But it was for me, it was Johnny Cash meets U2, very kind of rattle and hum time, and it just got bigger and bigger. And it's very subtle. It grows, and it's a little bit of delayed guitars and stuff, and it's a really beautiful song. It could have been an acoustic track.
Yeah, indeed.
Which is always a great sign. If you've got that option and you do look at each other and say we could keep this just stripped down, it usually means it's a really good song.
Absolutely,
it holds itself up.
I mean, obviously on that sort of basis then, obviously, it's like a very, very firm fitting tree. A tree's only as good as its roots, and obviously the roots are there already and you're just building on that rootage, if you like.
Mm.
And here we go.
close in your heart.
So we're just having a little pause, and it's coming in.
And even when death comes calling, you'll never part.
So we're into our last, of the 2 minutes left of this song.
Even when death comes calling, you'll never part. Love is easy.
Now, was that your voice again there, James, or were you being helped on this one?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't my voice.
No, I didn't think it was, unless obviously Steve kicked you somewhere and then recorded your voice. Who was that delightful vocal underneath you there?
Was this one?
Do you know what, James? I'm just sitting there thinking, I really hope James answers this because I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
It's either me or it's Esther. One of the two. I can't think who it is.
I've got a feeling it's Esther because it's such a nice, sweet.
I think it's Esther.
It's definitely a feminine voice there.
And we make it so.
Unless Pete is hiding a secret ambition to sing as well on this track.
I'll tell you why it's a little bit confusing, Sean, because on this track we had some backing vocal from Esther.
Yeah.
And there were gaps in the backing vocal because Esther had come down to the studio on one day with me and recorded several backing vocals for several of the songs.
Yeah.
But on that particular track, I think what happened was at the last minute, Smiley decided that he wanted the backing vocal to extend slightly further into the chorus.
Yeah.
So what he did was he augmented the bits.
Yeah.
It's all coming back now. It's all coming back.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
Of his own to complete the backing vocal. So he's kind of mimicked Esther.
Yeah.
At the end of the backing vocal in the chorus to give. I think there's a line that definitely isn't Esther. And there's parts of it that are. So
it's both of us. It's both of us, definitely. Yeah, morphing into each other. Yeah, that's it. Well remembered, James.
Pete, are you feeling a bit left out on this one, or did you?
It definitely isn't me because my wife doesn't let me sing in public. I don't like me singing in the house, to be honest. But yeah, I mentioned echo what the guy says. I think it's a great song.
Yes,
I loved it from the moment James first played it to me, and you could just strum it with a guitar and sing it through, and it'd be beautiful. But,
absolutely, absolutely.
What Smiley's done with it, with the arrangement, is fantastic.
Yeah,
and I think what surprised me with this is how long this song is, because I think it's sort of 5-6 minutes.
It is,
and
yeah.
It gives the song time to sort of breathe and live. Really,
yeah.
We're not rushing it, and that's how you get that really slow build right to the end, where you get the strings and the timpani and the full orchestra's in on it. I love it.
It is a great song, and I mean, obviously, it starts off again on that sort of, I keep going back to this roller coaster ride, and it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds, and before you know it, it's an explosion of lyrical mayhem, and the music is so nice with it, and it all really just crushes together nicely, and it is a lovely, lovely song. How long did it take you to write?
It didn't. Well, I mean, from the original sort of demo point of view, no time at all. Quite honestly, I came up with the idea for the sort of riff, and it just because, as I say, when I first took it to Smiley, it didn't really have a full chorus.
No,
I had a vague idea for a start of a chorus, but it didn't have a full chorus. So the bit I'd written didn't take very long at all. I'd had this lyric in my mind that I wanted to express.
Yeah.
And the rough idea, and then obviously the three of us in the studio. Well, I say the three of us. I chucked the idea into the middle of the room, and then sat down on the sofa while the two guys wrote the song.
Indeed. Right, we're running out of time, but I don't care because it's my station, and if I want to run over, I can, because we've got 4 more fantastic songs on this brilliant album, ladies and gentlemen. Next track is called Never Find Me, so we're going to go straight into it, then we'll come back to the guys and find out a little bit more about this. So straight away, we're into this song. Obviously, we've got a slow build up there of the steam train, or a train at least. I think it's a steam train. And most importantly, there, we're straight into the story hook, if you like, because you're running away from something or someone, and that person's never going to find you. That's it, you're out. You've gone. For me, it's an exciting journey that story, that song is taking us, James.
I would like to say from the outset, this is purely a work of fiction, though, because I've never killed anybody. Felt like it a few times, but I've never actually done it.
No, indeed.
But in fact, the sort of story behind the story, if you like, is that just kind of running away, sort of burying your head in the sand from the truth and stuff.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, originally, I think that song's got quite a sort of Scar type feel to it.
It has,
which I know at one point was something we talked about. But I think it's quite. I do think it's quite disguised, even though it's got that real Scar sort of feel to it. I think it is quite disguised. And what I really like about this is, I'm sure Sean, you will know a band called The Screens.
I do know The Screens. Yes, not personally, but I do know them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I quite liked. I loved their album. Whatever it was called, Wakes, Weddings and Bar Mitzvahs.
Oh, fantastic!
And I was listening to that album a lot at the time that I wrote the lyric for this and came up with the idea, the basic sort of riff.
Yep.
And I wanted something that sounded a little bit like that, and I think we've achieved that. And it's also got a bit of a feel of the Divine Comedy about it, I think, as well.
Indeed.
And again, really the keyboard throughout this is. It's exceptional all the way through, and I just had to sort of kind of sit back, tell the guys kind of what my original thoughts were, and then leave them to create, and did a fantastic job again.
Indeed, yeah. Going on to Pete then, obviously with the keyboard sounds there. Obviously, as James was saying, it has got that sort of that beat, that Scar beat to it as well. But obviously, are you sort of mimicking the idea of you're going on a journey with the sounds of this synthesizer, the keyboards and everything?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is probably one of my favourites in the album, if not the favourite, actually. I just love this one. Keep going back and listening to it again and again.
Yeah.
And we did this one in the studio. We had the basic track down in the studio, and we liked it. We felt that it needed something more. And so when lockdown came, I played around with it a lot. And with that keyboard that I nearly threw out, I got this really nice sort of synthesized train sound going, which goes underneath it. And then we added the arpeggiator. And then I found some station announcements. We bunged those in as well.
And why not?
So once we got all that in, I think the song, it just, it was the icing on the cake. The cake was already good, but it was just not icing on the cake. And it's and this is the one I remember, Smiley, you said this is brilliant. It's because James is the storyteller. He's telling a story along the way. And what we're doing is just sort of like filling in around him and, keep putting a bit of colour in the back, but just let him tell his story.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think the sound effects really add to it. It just builds on to the actual storyboard as well. I mean, I love the beginning of that because, obviously, dare I say it, whose idea was that? With the steam train starting off? Because
Pete, wasn't it?
Yeah, possibly. I remember chucking a steam train sound over to James and saying, "What do you think of this?" And then you coming up, James, saying, "Yeah, we need to start with this."
Yes.
And then just before the track starts, I think between the two of us, and then right at the end of the song, when you've got that synthesized train sound just sort of fading away into the distance.
Absolutely,
I can really see just that, off, you never find me. There he goes, off into the distance, never to be seen
gone.
Again.
Absolutely, he's gone.
It's a complete story. I love it.
The sound at the beginning, Sean, was about 45 seconds of train.
Yeah.
And I stuck the entire bit on the front of the track. And Smiley was saying to me, "You can't have 45 seconds of train." I was going,
I still think it's too long. I would have knocked another 20 seconds off it. But
I said, "I want 45 seconds of train." And in the end, he kept snipping bits off it. And we've ended up with about 20 seconds.
Oh, my goodness. No, I think it works. I think it builds it up nicely, and then you go, boom, straight into your lyric. And, it's the anticipation. Sometimes more is less and less is more, etc. But I think it builds. I mean, obviously, my take on that is, if I was to put that into a relevance down in the tube station at midnight, that builds. And that's more than 20 seconds, Mr. Smiley.
It certainly is.
What was it a pleasure working on that one, Steve?
There's a lot of twists on that.
Yeah,
musically, when you talk about the ska thing, there's a little trick in there where every instrument is playing the same kind of 16s, and there's one guitar that is doing the jing, and that's the ska bit. If the whole track went ska, it would be a little bit too, my girl's mad at me kind of thing or whatever.
Yeah.
I think so. It's disguised within it.
I think we got past the My Girl's Mad at Me anyway because he's on the train now.
Well, it would have fitted. My Girl's Mad at Me would have fitted after listening to these songs. Really? She'd be livid, James.
Oh my goodness me. Okay, on to track 11 then, and that is Like I Love You. So obviously you've disappeared, James, and now it's Like I Love You. So where's the connection there? Is there a connection at all?
Yeah, this was, in a sense, this is sort of almost the final piece of the jigsaw because I absolutely, completely wrote this lyric about my wife, Pippa.
Okay.
So this was kind of like the closing the book almost, as it were. You know?
Getting to the last couple of chapters, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, and I had an idea, funnily enough. My original concept of this song was that it would be something quite sort of kind of almost Ray Charles, a bit sort of late 50s kind of sound, mid 50s. And then we ended up with something that's much more like sort of Abbey Road type Beatles.
Yes. Yes.
And it's just, and as soon as I heard that and the guys had played that, it just blew me away. It absolutely blew me away.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's wait no more. Let's play a snippet of this. And I've got to say now, there's a lot of drumming on this one, Mr. Smiley, because it really comes through on this song, and it's it almost sort of borderlines sort of a rock almost.
It was. I nicked it off of "Oh Darling" by the Beatles, actually. That's where it's from. But to me, it's such a celebratory song.
Yes.
It's the one on the album that's kind of against all the darkness. It's like the other side of the line, as it were, and it's a celebration about James finding love with Pippa and everything. And so really, it's the first drum tape. I just sat and joyously drummed along to kind of Pete's Guide, and that was it really. This song didn't take very long at all. I think I finished my bit in about an hour.
Wow.
All the guitars and the bass and the drums, and literally sent it back and went, go on and finish it off yourselves. And it was it was so easy and so quick. I doubted it for a while whether it fit, but now I actually really like it from a point of view of it being the joyousness and the kind of the light at the end of the tunnel. Do you know what I mean? It's
absolutely.
Nice.
And I mean, I would go on to say, really, from there, has the album finished? Because it does sound like a really big finisher as well, personally.
I thought it was going to be last. I always had the impression that the journey went from, kind of James's, darkness to the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And then he informed me there were 2 more songs. So that blew that one out the window.
You can never trust the Walsh, I tell you. He's always there. What about yourself?
Got something up his sleeve, that lad.
Oh, yeah, he's always there. Pete, what did you think of this then, yourself?
Yeah, I had a completely different experience to Smiley on this one, because I put down some Hammond organ sound on it, and then James kept saying, I can hear Jules Holland on this. I want a Jules Holland piano, and I could not make it work. And then I remember one day, it must have been during lockdown, I was out for a bike ride, and in my head, it's funny you mentioned, Smiley, Oh Darling, because I was thinking of going through Oh Darling, I thought, I know what's going to work on this. And I came back and recorded some keyboard parts, which actually... it was using a fuzz guitar sound, so you can hear some guitar on there, which is actually keyboard.
Yeah.
And I think once it all clicked into place, it just needed that. You need to find that, the key to unlock it. And once that happened, I thought, I get it now. And this is the one that Smiley said. This is guys in a room just jamming and having a ball.
Yeah.
And of course, we were all recorded it separately, but I think it has got that sound. This is. I love this one now.
Now, amazingly, ladies and gentlemen, they did do this one singly, all on their own. They weren't together on this. And it does sound incredibly, like you just said, you put the sort of really nail, hit the nail on the head there. I would have imagined you three actually sitting in a room and going, 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, and you start.
I think that was the idea, Sean, to make it sound. My idea when I was doing it was the fact that we were performing it in the back room of a bar.
Yeah.
With Pippa at the back while James was serenading her. That's what I had in my head. And to make it sound like we were in a backroom bar, you know, kind of just kind of jamming it out. The irony being, we never got anywhere near each other on this tune.
That is amazing, because it sounds like you're in a room together. That song, really, if any of the other songs did, this one most certainly you would say, right, definitely done this one pre-lockdown, because it sounds like, you know, you just hit the record button, 1, 2, 3, 4, and off you went. So, James, overall, I mean, obviously you must have been absolutely pleased with this.
Yeah, I was, because at one point when we first started out on this one, you know, Smiley actually said he wasn't sure it would suit the album, and I think that was because of sort of my vision of it was so far away from what we ended up with.
Yeah.
You know, that he's almost certainly right. I was looking for something that was quite nostalgic.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have fitted the way I'd envisaged it to start with.
Easy for you to say.
It was only once we had added all the sort of different parts and it came together sort of almost last minute, you know, that it really worked.
I totally agree. I mean, it does sound like a real big ender, and then boom, all of a sudden we've got 2 more tracks to enjoy, so we're going to go straight into the next track, which is our penultimate track, which is called This Is Me. This is one of yours again, James, yeah?
Yeah, this was another one that we did on another one that we begun on the very first day that we started recording the album.
Yeah. Excellent.
And it's just, you know, again, it's a song that's just a story. It was about, it's just about people, you know, observations of people and the way people behave around each other.
Okay, let's have a little listen. I got to tell you now, if you were talking about earworms earlier, Pete, this one was playing in my head for the majority of the day, despite listening to other music after listening to this album 2, 3, 4 times. This stayed in my head for such a long time afterwards. I started humming it and I thought, what on earth am I humming? Because I totally forgot that I heard this song 3, 4 times during the course of the morning, and it was still in my ear about 5 o'clock on that day. And that for me, is that not a perfect song when it stays in your head and you just think to yourself, where have I heard this? Where have I heard this? And then obviously listening to it just then, I thought, that's where I heard it. Brilliant. So for me, that was a perfect song.
This song, isn't it?
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, quite hypnotic, quite drawn into it. And James is far too modest to say this, but it's a really clever lyric on here, because at the beginning of each line in the verse, you've got that how, what, why, where, probably not in that order, and then in the second verse is to go A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
So he's being really clever with the lyric there. It's a great track.
Absolutely. Did you think you were being clever with this, James, yourself?
No.
No, there you go. There's modesty for you. And to bring it all together, Steve, again, it just sounds very, very complicated. Was it?
It's the most complicated track on the album.
I thought so, yeah.
By a long way. And it's the most satisfying, because I know what I wanted to do. I was using some tricks, because once we'd written it and we'd got that idea, the kind of the harpsichord sound that Pete brought in and everything. But I was trying to play on those one words. So if you listen on headphones, those single words at the start of each line of the verse are in your left ear and then in your right ear, and then everything flies around. It's the best production song on the record. It's my favourite on the album. I think I'm really pleased with this one. So yeah,
I am as well.
Challenges.
It was very, very good. Obviously, I've not heard it on the earphones yet. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have bought this album and you've not yet experienced it on headphones, do so, because obviously then you'll get a better sound, because obviously you'll hear it all split apart, and it'll just give you a mind sonic thump in the face, you know, literally that alone. And I love that. I mean, there's obviously, you know, clever ways of engineering music. But it just picks it up in your ears, so you can have something in your left, something in your right, and you think, oh wow, you know, and that, you know, it hits you sort of flat bang in the face as well, which I like it. But yeah, like you say, it sounds complicated. I thought it was. That's why I wanted to ask that question. But overall, I love this track, and you know, track 11, like I Love You. I thought that was big. This is even bigger. So what's going on, James? I mean, are you building and building and building, and you think, well, hang on a minute, I need something explosive for the end?
No, I think what happened really was it was just the way that the songs played out. In the sense that when you go into a studio with an idea of whatever size, doesn't really matter, and it's what you do with it once you get there, isn't it? And that's, as I've said all along, one of the beauties of working with these two guys is that I was very much, there were lots of days in the studio where I spent most of the day sat on my backside in the corner, occasionally dipping in my tuppence worth, while these guys were doing wonderful things with the music.
Absolutely,
It was a tremendous experience, and something that I can look back on and go, well, it was just happy days.
And I don't know if you've noticed this. Obviously, before we play the last track and say goodnight, I know we got to say goodnight in a minute, ladies and gentlemen. But what I've noticed is when I've played track 13, and then it goes back to track 1, because obviously I had it on like a loop on my CD player in the truck when I was first listening to it, it blends together again. Did you notice that at all?
Yeah, I think that was deliberate. That was an absolute deliberate thing. It was a last-minute thing that we wanted to add that sequence on at the end. And it was brilliant because Pete and I had talked about it and sort of said about doing something like that. What happened originally was Smiley had tagged on a little bit of "You Can't Go Back" as just a repetition at the end.
Yes.
And then we sort of came up with this idea, well, why not have that over the top of the music box to kind of finish where we started?
And it does, it loops it together nicely. It's brilliant.
Yeah, because we just threw that idea at Smiley and he just created it.
I think the other idea, Sean, was the fact that it depicts that everything's gone full circle.
Yes.
So you've gone through so many stories from start to finish.
Yeah.
From Music Box about something being handed down generations, and then the journey that James went on kind of through his life with ups and downs, and it gets to the very end and it just shows you that everything has gone full circle and it trips and it goes back to the start.
Absolutely. We are going to play this last track in full before we obviously finish off the show this evening. But before we do that, are we going now to do another album with the same sort of concept for you, Pete?
Yeah, I'd love to. It's interesting you mentioned the concept idea as well. It's just going into this last track because I wrote this song and the lyric sort of in isolation. And I think it was the last session we had in the studio, Smiley. You said... We said we wondered about this being at the end. We thought this should go at the end as a sort of quiet, sort of almost gospel-y song to finish with. And you said, actually, because this is what the album's about. It's about you can't go back. You can't go back and fix things. You can't change what's happened. You can't change the good things or the bad things. They're just stuff that have happened. Yeah. And that's what, it is that concept, starting with that music box, which is going right back to, James talking about his childhood and his grandma and so on, and then these stories that unfold throughout. Yeah. So I think it brings it full circle, as you were saying. That's the whole idea that we're finishing off and reflecting on the rest of the album with this song. Yeah. I think but it just works out perfectly.
I think it's a really good idea as well, because you're taking sort of like the highs and the lows from your own personal life, James, and you're putting it into music. You're putting it into very clever ways of lyrics, making songs out of your highs and lows, and obviously your ups and downs in life, without giving away too much. But enough to obviously keep the listener entertained as well. And I think the concept there is very, very clever. And I think that could work for, say, like Pete, or even indeed, it might have to have about 3 albums for Steve, But, personally, I would love to have another one of these albums, maybe next year or something, from maybe yourself, Pete. And, getting a sort of a life perspective in musical form. I think that would really, really work. So, there you go. I'll give you some ideas for you. Free of charge, I don't charge for that. Unfortunately, you've got to do all the hard work for it.
What we found with this album is we all work well together.
Yes, you can see that.
It flows, it's organic. There's no egos. We just want the music to be good, and that winning formula is on our side.
Absolutely. And who come up with the idea of KW? Was it yourself, or is it sort of a joint thing? Did you toss a coin, or Steve Smiley Barnard is pointing to himself there?
Yeah, I'm taking full responsibility for that.
I mean, you
I'll
couldn't.
tell you what it was, Sean. These two are so lovely that they wanted me in that title, all right?
But you couldn't, because we've all got
But it sounded like a painter and decorators or a mortgage company. Smiley, Walsh, Kirby, or whatever it was. So
yeah,
for
absolutely.
me, it was enough for me to take the kind of producer's reign and be the person who glued. In my eyes, I glued them together.
Yeah.
So Kirby Walsh for me, I like to think of myself as the glue in the middle. So
yeah.
So I think it's a really good kind of two worlds colliding, two words colliding as well. So yeah, I'll take full responsibility for that. Thanks very much.
You're very welcome. It's good. I like it. Unfortunately, you couldn't have KWS because I think there was a band back in the 90s for them.
And it does sound like a painter and decorator's firm.
That as well, yes. Okay. I'll leave you to sort out who's doing what with that side of things and who's driving the van, who's making the tea, and obviously who's putting up the wallpaper. But for now, guys, of course, I would like everyone out there to go and purchase this because it is a marvellous album. It does make you reflect on your own life as well as listening to, obviously, in this case, James's life to a point. Obviously, without getting too personal, we do get a gist of what's going on there. We haven't given away too much, I don't think, James, but how can we purchase this fine album, please, sir?
You simply go to www.gatecrashthepартybooks.com/shop.
Excellent. And while you're there, I mean, I'm sure that I think there's a couple of your books there as well, isn't there?
There's a couple of my books.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful book by a Smiley person that you can also buy there. You can also pre-order Smiley's Best of Friends CD.
Fantastic.
And there's an excellent book on there also by an author called Dave Millington, who's published one book through Gatecrash the Party and is about to publish his second.
Gotcha. Lovely. There we go. Just a reminder, everyone again, that email address, that website address is
www.gatecrashthepартybooks.com/shop.
Perfect. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. And what we'll do, I'll get James to throw over a link and we'll put that up onto the Target Radio website and, of course, onto the Facebook pages, Twitter and all the other social media sites that I think I know what I'm doing with. But for now, I've got to say thank you very much indeed, guys. It took us a best part of an hour and a half to go through the whole album, and I'm sure it would have took another hour and a half just obviously to discuss the fine tunes in there if we had more time as well. But I've got to tell you, it's a fantastic and fine album, guys, and hats off to you. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Cheers, Sean. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot.
There we go. We're back live, okay, here at Target Radio, and I've just got to say now, again, one more time, to Pete Kirby, Mr. Barnard, Smiley one, woo, and the lovable Father Christmas lookalike, Mr. James. By the way, are you keeping it on for Christmas?
I am keeping it. Jessica Rose, my youngest.
Yep.
We first went into lockdown. She said, "Grow a beard and some hair," because I've never had a beard or hair. And
halfway there, James.
Yeah, I know. She's the boss in the family, so it's got to stay for a while.
Well, you do know that there are brilliant barbers out there that can actually turn your head the other way around. I'm not sure if it hurts, and not one that I want to try it. And if you notice, I never show the back of my hair ever. There we go. Oh my goodness me! I look in the mirror now. I know I'm panning for time here. I look in the mirror now and I see what an original hair growing through now and again. I think, oh, that's what my colour was once.
Lucky you.
Oh my goodness me. Guys, you've been stars this evening. Thanks ever so much indeed for jumping on and going through this marvellous album. We are going to finish off with the final track, which is You Can't Go Back. And you can press loop or you can press play again and listen to the whole album again like I did. But for now, thanks once again for our lovable trio there. And we'll see you guys soon. Thanks ever so much indeed. Look after yourself.
Thanks.
And of course,
Thanks, man.
Stay safe. Make sure hand sanitizers and masks and all of the other bits and pieces that we need to do for the normal at the moment. But for now, thanks guys.
Cheers, Sean.
There he is. There they go. They're all gone. Brilliant stuff. And I've got to tell you now, what a fantastic album we've reviewed today. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this evening. Coming up now, we've got, you're going to love this, really going to love this. We've got the guest list, number 39. That's coming up after me. I'm going to leave you with one more. This is me, and thank you very much indeed. We'll see you next Sunday at 7 o'clock with another live guest.
Oh, cookie, me really love that cookie. So after that one cookie, me make 2, then 3, then 4. Cookie, me no longer just a rookie. Cause once me ate one
cookie. Goodbye, it's time to run.
So long, farewell, I'll be there saying goodnight.
It's goodbye, it's goodbye, it's goodbye. Bye, baby, goodbye.
When do I get my badge?
And we're back, yes. And what did you think of that for an interview? Wasn't it great? We found out so much. Anyway, thank you very much indeed for joining us for the Target Radio podcast. I am your pod father. That is me, Cookie. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes if you can, please. If you think we deserve it, 5 stars, please. It does help with the future of Target Radio. Check out all of our great shows here on Target Radio. And as I say, please support local artists and the unsigned band. Until next time, thank you very much indeed. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.